back. Welcome to MLB Prop Pick Show, powered by the Bat on Covers. Thanks for joining us here Wednesday, Derek. MLB's opening. Let's call it opening day tomorrow. Are we? I know this is such a cliche thing to talk about at this time of the year, but Cubs, Dodgers in Tokyo really didn't get me excited as tomorrow will.
Yeah, no. I mean, it was nice to get a little taste, but definitely looking forward to tomorrow. I'm so excited that baseball's back.
Baseball's back. The longest grind of any professional sport by far. One record that I don't think will ever be broken in any sport again will be Ripken's record of like the Ironman streak. Like betting on baseball is a grind. Playing baseball for like entirety of seasons, I just don't think will ever happen again.
Yeah, it's I don't think so either. It's such a long season.
Do you think we'll ever get games played markets?
That would actually be really cool.
Right? Yeah.
I think it would be really hard to actually find edge on that, but it would be cool.
Interesting, right? I guess cheering for injuries is a pretty terrible thing to do in the world of betting. I think
that is
a line there.
Maybe like we're rooting for them to suck and get benched or something.
Yeah, we're even in that boat, right? Like pitcher usually riding the unders.
That is true.
If he gets hurt, you're like, you hate to see it, but
that is part of the game and part of why unders are more appealing than overs a lot of times. Yeah.
Welcome everybody there in the chat. Appreciate everybody jumping on Wednesday, 9:15. This week we're going Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This time, plays tomorrow, plays Friday, and then next week back to the regular scheduled program, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. Game releases, get the accounts primed, ready to go. Let's try not to get limited, but the limited game, like the more we do this, and this is like year 4, I believe. It's been profitable every year.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I remember like 4 years ago, we were talking about like getting limited. Like it was just kind of like a hush hush thing. Oh, you're going to hear. And now it's just like so much in the front face of everything where you're just like, you're going to get limited. Take it while you can, because it doesn't matter. Sooner or later, you're going to get limited.
Sooner or later, you're going to get limited. Do everything you can to push that time off, as much as you can. Try to do things to obscure the fact that you're a sharp bettor because you're listening to us and using the BetX. Do some parlays, bet some game stuff, like bet some. I know you like to bet soccer and like other stuff just to, there's lots of ways to try to throw them off the scent, but eventually, they're going to realize that you're sharp.
Speaking of sharp, Roki Sasaki. Under 1.5 walks. I think I got it at plus 135. I checked. It closed at like minus 125. And you're like, yeah, this could go either way. And that's the double kick, right? Where you finish with like 60 points of closing line value and then you lose.
Yeah. If you're using the BetX for that game, all of Sasaki's unders were projecting well, but the walks in particular projected the best. Basically, I mean, he'd only thrown like 45 pitches max in spring training. So we're like, he's going to throw 60 tops. I think he threw 56 and all of his other under markets hit. So if you bet any of those, great. If you bet the walks, that one was unfortunate to not be able to hit when we kind of got the handicap right.
Yeah, we could have arbed that thing right from the beginning. As Yahtzee says, he got the over at plus money because of the steam that followed that way. And you'll hear out throughout the season. Right? Like people will say, because of the influence that your projections have, they're saying, some people will say, well, it's maybe some artificial line movement. At the end of the day, it's still been profitable. Like, I mean, football, we actually do primetime games, but like 3 days a week, we get you at 9:15 to find lines that have already moved. Not so much, but have already moved and still profitable. So,
yeah, it's definitely a combination. Like people using the BetX is going to cause the lines to move, but also that's the way the lines should move anyway. Like the BetX is sharp. People who use it are sharp. Even if the BetX weren't public, I think the lines would move that direction regardless. Or at least you would expect them to, based on anyone else who's betting sharply the way we are. So yeah, closing line value on this stuff can be a little deceiving, but also it's the way the market should move. And we have enough historical results to say, okay, it doesn't really matter if the closing line value is a little deceptive. Like we have an edge here. The process is very sound. We should expect to be winning long-term regardless.
And if you want to go against it, just wait till first pitch, because it constantly moves the other way.
Yeah, definitely.
Producer Mick on the buttons today saying like, comment, share, subscribe. Day one, absolutely do it. This is it's just a different type of content, the release show, right? Like, it doesn't have the long shelf life. If you're watching the show, probably when you finish work at 5 o'clock, numbers gone. Expect that thing. I don't want to see it in the comments, although I like the comments, but I don't want to say this number wasn't available. Well, watch the video. Here's us showing you the live number.
Yeah, we show it live. The number is absolutely there. Probably within minutes of us talking about it, it's going to move. So watch live if you can to get the best numbers. And we'll show the best number, but we'll also give you alternate books. Okay, this book's 5 points off. This book's 10 points off. So you have options.
And a fair market price for where the buy point is with that mark.
Right, yeah.
That reminds me of, and we watch things move in real time, literally, right? Watch the markets move in real time. The FanDuel move, be careful, right? They move it so much, and then they make, just because they want you to click it, and then they'll move the market back up. That's
as you watch with us, as you do this stuff, you'll start to kind of see the tendencies of the books and how to the best way to approach this stuff.
Yes, that's exactly what Suki's saying there. Tyler Jackson saying, Bet365 finally in Illinois. Congratulations to Illinois. Enjoy your 365.
Oh, nice.
Minutes is an exaggeration. I would say you have less than 1 minute. Yeah. it is quick. Like, some people will get it, some people won't. And at the end of the day, this is a free show doing that. I would hate to be like a paying subscriber to like a big ticket thing and like not get those numbers, because that becomes a very difficult thing in that industry.
Yeah. And the good thing too is, I mean, this is a free show. We're putting this out there. We're guiding you to the market before we put it out. So everyone should be able to get it. But the projections are available before the show starts. You can get the Bad X at EV Analytics, and you can see the projection for every player, every market. That's what I'm basing these picks on. I'm looking at it. I'm saying, okay, I like this one the most. And whichever lines are still there around game time or around showtime, I'm like, all right, this is what we're going to do. But you are able to get these lines yourselves before the show.
Yeah. Like, with your numbers, my betting strategy goes from wake up in the morning, 6:30, and just look at the projections, like the numbers that I trust. Right. And if you see, and I know how you project, I know where they are. And sometimes you see an outlier where it's like, wow, that's 40% edge. You're like, okay, let's dig into that. Let's see if there's something there. Right. Like, know the projections, know the markets. And my suggestion to you is, if you're subscribing, I mean, Covers will have projections on site as well. Make sure that you just get to know the market, right? Like, don't just start spraying, okay, this is a 5-star play here, there. Get to know the market so that you can see maybe there are some outliers, or there are some spots where maybe you catch something as a bettor that's, maybe something's not priced in. But I mean, if you watched us, I think we were down to what, like maybe 5 markets in total last year.
Yeah. By the end of the year, we were, kind of focusing on a few. Hopefully this year, we see some new spots to target. So every year is different. The books are always going to leave certain, weak spots exposed. It's just a matter of finding them.
And what it all basically comes down to is quantity in pitches, quantity in at bats.
That is really a huge part of it. That's something the market just still does not really account for as well as they should. So a lot of edges just come down to that.
Mr. Mike saying, I've stepped away from DFS and more into sports betting. Yes, the DFS, you absolutely have to love it. And fantasy, like Derek, the high-end fantasy stuff. It's such a long grind for some of that turnover sometimes to be like in those 12-man, $10,000, $5,000 leagues. Like, I got buddies in it too, but it's such a grind. And it comes down to like that last week by like a waiver wire guy that you just added with your last dollar. It's certainly stressful, but baseball betting community certainly here and certainly will be here every day for every release show. So let's get going. I want to get some things because obviously I lost my control F. Fantastic. When you're talking and you're setting your projections, we always talk about it. We talk about Coors Field. We talk about the settings and spots. This year, there are some new settings. And when we're trying to find stuff that's not priced in, the books might have difficulty pricing in situations like the Athletics are playing at Sutter Health Park, 14,000 seats. And like, if you know anything about wind, it's something that I've learned a lot working with you, Derek, is, wow, Oracle Park has a lot of wind today. You're like, no, it doesn't mean anything. Oh, Wrigley has some wind. You're like, okay, but no, it's actually more because there's no bleachers.
5 mile per hour wind actually in Wrigley is the same as, like 30 mile per hour wind, like anywhere else. Yeah. We'll definitely talk about this stuff. And like you said, we have kind of a few new spots this year, which will make things fun.
14,000 seats for the Athletics this year. From what I saw, no bleachers in the outfield, like a straight, it's a single A park, basically. Murray Cook. Do you know who Murray Cook is? The fields, the head fields guy. He's an Australian. He does all the fields for all the stuff. He's helping it run. But the River Cats of the PCL, and if you know anything about the PCL, it's a launching pad of minor league baseball. I think it's still a launching pad. But the River Cats are also playing on that field.
Yeah. They're sharing it with the AAA team.
Like, how are you quantifying that?
I mean, I don't know how you quantify, okay, they're sharing the field. I'd like
or just, but even the dimensions, like I think it's 325 down right. Like it's
right. Yeah. So the way the Bad X is approaching this park for Sacramento, it's not even the Sacramento Athletics, it's just the Athletics, which has created some really fun programming.
So hard to find them in like the in the scrolling and the drop downs. Yeah.
So what the Bad X does for park factors for this kind of stuff, like it'll look at the physical dimensions of the park. It'll look at everything that we know for sure and can quantify. It'll say, okay, the fences are this distance, they're this high, we have this much fair ground, this much foul ground, the park is, so many feet above sea level. Anything we can quantify like that, the bat will look at. It'll look at historically how parks play based on those factors, and it'll come up with an estimate of the park based on that. Like you said, though, there are so many things that we don't know about a park, how the wind is going to interact, especially if there's no bleachers. Every park is different in terms of their mound height, their groundskeeping, their ball mudding. They're just so many different things. And so I've come up with an original estimate, based on the things that we can quantify. And the projection will adjust as we get data. But new parks are really tough to really get a great handle on. So it's going to be really interesting to see this year kind of how the market handles it, how the bat adjusts, whether we're going to get some edge on these or not. Same situation going on in Tampa Bay with the Rays. The Trop was damaged in the hurricane, so they're playing at George Steinbrenner Field in Tampa.
The Trop's not getting ready by next season. Like, no chance.
Yeah, we'll have to see about that. But yeah, this year they're definitely not there. So similar situation where I am, again, projecting that field as a kind of a new thing. And then I should also note that weather obviously makes a huge difference. And a lot of people kind of talk about parks and weather combined. The bat approached them separately. So it has a park factor, assuming that the weather is just completely neutral. And then it has weather factors that it will apply as well, which at least in this regard is nice because both of these parks project to be the two hottest parks in baseball on average this year.
What?
And yeah, and temperature is consistent from park to park. 80 degrees in Tampa is exactly the same as 80 degrees in Chicago in terms of how it affects the air density. And so that we can just transport directly from every other park, put it on top of these projections, and that's going to help.
Wondering if that indoor Tampa Bay team is ready for the heat in the pitching and already maybe some management that doesn't let their guys go or just a rotation that's already banged up. Interesting to see. Camden Yards, right-hander hitters rejoice. Field in, fence down. They're talking like 20 feet distance, I read, in some spots, in one of the worst spots. Like, how significant is that?
Yeah, it's significant. The Orioles, I think it was 4 years back, decided to push their fences in left field like way back. It was the second biggest change in fence distance in MLB history, which is pretty crazy. The first was like the Red Sox in like the 60s or something. So yeah, it was huge. We saw the park go from an extreme home run park to basically a home run suppressing park, like from a hitter's park to a pitcher's park. They realized, okay, this was too extreme. We're going to try to find some middle ground here. So this offseason, they moved the fences more or less halfway between what they were originally and what they were the last few years. There are quirks to it. I've accounted for all of that when adjusting the park factors in the bat. But basically what we see is that it's now going to project as more or less a neutral home run park. It's not going to kill home runs the way it was before. But it's still not great for them. Certainly not what it was previously.
My research at Camden Yards, I found out they have $5 domestic beers this year, $4 hot dogs, $4 nachos, $3.50 peanuts, and $2.50 popcorn. That is incredible.
Yeah, that's some good value right there. I mean, wouldn't expect
you can
that.
get a beer and a hot dog for under $10, or like
That's
yeah.
You go to most parks, you're paying $15 for the beer and $15 for the hot dog.
100%, and asking for a giant tip, when you get it yourself. All right, let's talk futures plus EV snacks from Yahtzee. Absolutely, future segment. I'd like to call this one right off the top. If you followed the show, call it "Winning is Ugly." You don't see us out there hammering Shohei Ohtani props on the overs.
Yeah,
right?
You won't see us with that. Like, you're coming here expecting to get some ugly plays, and we certainly have those queued up for you today.
This is the world where we introduce you to Hayden Birdsong and and Davis Martin, and who's actually in this rotation we're about to talk about. So let's throw it out there. Chicago White Sox. Throw it up, Mick. Let me make sure I got my number right. Oh, we're doing it like a release. All right, beautiful. We're over at DK. Win totals, and I blew it. -110, Chicago White Sox. That is an over. 53.5. Winning is ugly. 53.5. You're like, but Derek, they only won 41 games. This is the team you're expecting to win 14 more games coming off last year. They lost their best player in Garrett Crochet. Eloy Jimenez is gone. Juan Makata is gone. Michael Kopech gone. Sean Burke, I believe, is the opening day starter. But it's always these narratives that, as ugly as it is, there's only ever value on the other side.
That's exactly it. I mean, we did this exact same thing last year with the Oakland A's, where they were coming off just a terrible season. And everyone's like, this is the worst team that's ever existed. And chances are they're not the worst team that ever existed. The White Sox were terrible last year, and they've theoretically gotten worse, but they almost certainly underperformed their talent level last year. Like, very few teams are ever like true talent 40-win teams. Like, it just doesn't exist, or at least we can't project them to exist, because most of the time those teams are not that bad. And so what we're really expecting here is just the White Sox to be bad, but not historically terrible. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. This line is set incredibly low. The Bad X's projection for the White Sox this year is 66 wins, which means we're getting about 13 wins over this line here, which is just insane. I've never seen a preseason win total gap like that before. But I don't think we've had a 40-win team in the history of me doing this with the Bad X before either. So really, it's gross. The White Sox are bad. The Bad X projects them, I think, as the worst team in baseball. I think basically them and the Rockies are projected within like a 1/10 of a win of each other.
59.5 for Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's just, this team is bad. It's not as bad as the market thinks. Books know nobody wants to bet the over on the White Sox, so they can set the lines low. This actually opened 50.5, a couple months ago at every book. It's moved up, which I think really says something that even though people don't want to bet the over on the White Sox, it's still moving that way. You know, we've lost 3 wins of value since it opened. And most books, I think, are actually 54.5. Still fine betting that. The projection 66. But yeah, White Sox over, sign me up.
Yeah, Bobby Newport saying I took the over on Colorado. Yes, Colorado does have that advantage. We talk about it constantly. It's certainly priced in especially the first game of the sets in Colorado, the VMI stuff in terms of visual memory index of people getting adjusted to the elevation in the first game. But they do have a slight advantage in their first game in their home series for sure. But it might be an equal disadvantage when they go on the road. But Colorado probably projecting on the over, and it's always the other side, right? Like the Dodgers are what, like I think 103.5 or something, 104.5, and
they were like 104.5 before they won the 2 games in Tokyo. I don't know what they're at now, but yeah, if I were betting on Dodgers, I would be betting under.
None of the Dodgers numbers are going to move, right? Like Shohei Ohtani is plus 165 for the NL MVP. He can't get any shorter until the end of July, basically, right? Like there's no rush to go out and get anything Dodgers. I did 52 February. There you go. 52, Reed Phillips. So that's where we start off something ugly. White Sox. And I also love when like guys like Buster Olney are doing their tour and like saying, this team might be worse than last year. But yeah, on paper it might be, but probably like you can't lose 40. You can't win 40 games of 162. It's just almost so hard to do.
Right, exactly. Even though they lost 40 games last year or won 40 games last year, you're not expecting them to actually be like last year. They weren't a true talent 40-win team. They were probably more like a 65-win team or something like that. Like they were bad and they got bad variance. That's how you get to 40 wins.
All right. Let's crap on New York. Why not? While we're here. We're at DraftKings. No, sorry. We're at Bet Rivers. Canby Books here. Fish for another line. This is a big price here. Let's go to teams to make the playoffs. If we can just scroll up, where does it say the team name just to make sure? Team specials.
Yeah, team specials.
Oh, team specials. Click on the team. Oh, that's how they're doing it. It's a grouping of the market. Gotcha. To make playoffs. Yankees. Let's hit that no at plus 240. Yankees to make the playoffs? No. Plus 240. My favorite thing about this, Derek, is that you were so high on New York last year when a lot of people weren't.
Yes. And it's all about context. Like I have the Yankees projected, I mean, kind of, well, I guess not similarly to last year, but like last year, everyone's like, oh, the Yankees are going to be so bad. It's like, no, they're not. They're the Yankees. And now they make the World Series and everyone's like, the Yankees are the best again. And it's like, well, no, probably not. It's all about just like being tempered relative to what the public thinks. If the public really is like all over something, chances are the true value is probably less than that. And if they really hate something, the true value is probably higher than that. The Yankees, I mean, everyone's expecting them to make the playoffs because they're the Yankees, but this Yankees team has a lot of holes and a lot of question marks. I was on this bet before Garrett Cole got injured, and Cole's out for the year now. Carlos Carrasco is going to be in their rotation. Carlos Carrasco is not a guy that you want to be relying on in your rotation on opening day as a World Series contender. Like it's just not.
He might be a victim of the show at some point during the year.
He most certainly will be. I mean, even you think of their lineup and like, okay, it's the Yankees. They have a great offense. Not really. You look at their lineup. Austin Wells is projected as their leadoff hitter right now. And behind Aaron Judge, we have the corpses of Cody Bellinger and Paul Goldschmidt. The bottom of the order is like Ben Rice and Oswaldo Cabrera and Oswald Perez. And it's like, okay, they certainly have plenty of talent. They have Judge. Stanton will be back at some point. Bellinger and Goldie are fine. You know, they signed Max Fried. Rodon is good, but like, this is not like this doesn't project as a 90-95 win team. It's just not. The BAT projects them for 84 wins. It projects them for 49% chance of making the playoffs. which means at plus 240 to not make the playoffs for a coin flip, that is insane value. And it's not just the bad X. If you look at projected, make the playoff percentages for other projection systems, like on FanGraphs, ATC has them at 55%. The FanGraphs composite has them, I think, at like 60. Oopsie has them at like 60 something. Pacoda, I think, has them at like 53. Like, you look at pretty much any projection system and you see that there's some level of value on this. And if you're using the bad X, there's a lot of value on this. Yeah, if Judge misses any time, they're in real big trouble.
So the 180s are okay. We saw the 200. DK was 200 this morning. We're seeing it move, but the 180s, if you're calling it somewhere around a fair price of even money, 180 still good?
180 still fine with me, yeah. I think DK had 200. I think some books have 180 or 175. So definitely fine at those numbers too.
No, but certainly a lot of moving pieces within this roster. Soto gone, Gleyber Torres gone, Verdugo gone, John Bertle gone, Tommy Conley gone, Clay Holmes gone. Like, there's a lot of bodies who are gone here, and I don't know. Maybe the division. I think the books might be a little low on the Blue Jays. I don't know where you have them on. I think their rotation, if they can stay healthy, can be competitive in that division. Baltimore, people are really high on Baltimore. Do you put different amounts of units on your future since the money is tied up for a while? That's a good question. I think that's personal preference. It's up to you.
Yeah, it's really personal preference. Generally, I don't put a lot on futures because it's tied up for so long. So it's kind of up to you how much you want to put on it. But I agree, like this, what you were saying about the division, like the BAT projects the spread between the top team in this division and the worst team to be like, I think, less than 5 wins. There's a lot of competition here. None of these teams are really elite, but none of them are bad either.
Yeah, the AL is absolutely wide open. We could see a lot of teams make some moves, and it's going to be a tough one to project. Let's go across the league. The Mets. Shall we? Caesars. Win total. And let's go 91.5 on the under. Throw it up. Mets under 91.5 wins. I wait for producer Mick to put it up because I'm not in release mode yet, so I don't want to get in trouble for saying the wrong side. So put producer Mick under the bus. But Mets under 91.5 wins. And this is probably very similar logic in terms of the Yankees. This is very, very high narrative driven, but Clay Holmes, Tyler McGill, Griffin Canning as your number 3, and you're even like a David Pedersen guy. Like, you like him a lot.
Yeah.
The bottom end of this order kind of falls off too.
It does. Yeah. Bottom of the order where you have, Jose Siri and, Francisco Alvarez is out. So they're going to have Luis Torrens as their starting catcher for a while. Like, this is, obviously they added Juan Soto, who's great. I think Clay Holmes can actually be good this year. And Griffin Canning, the Mets, at least, I think, like, they're a very smart organization now. Like, they could make something out of a Griffin Canning. They could make him good. But you kind of that has to happen, really, for them to reach this number. 91.5 is a lot of wins for a team that doesn't really have a true ace, has a weak bottom half of the order. Any injury at all to Soto, really hampers their chances of this. So yeah, I like the under here on the Mets. The BAT is projecting 84-ish wins. So we're getting some good value here. I think most books are 90.5, which are fine too. But especially if you can get the 91.5, this looks good to me.
Interesting in the NL because 6 teams in, and it's just like Atlanta, Mets, Phillies. Okay, there. Let's go. Dodgers, Padres. Everybody's just throwing the Padres under the bus just because the issue with the ownership, which I think is super priced into everything, it seems, right? Like, you're a big Dylan Cease fan. I think you have them projected to lead the league in strikeouts this year, which is a pretty good spot. And then Arizona could make some noise. and then they're 6, and you haven't even accounted for the Central. And it's not seeing 2 teams go through the Central, I think, this year in Milwaukee and the Cubs. You're Cincinnati, you're in trouble, but interesting to see which team comes out, or if it's just kind of dog eats dog and everybody sits in that, outside of the Dodgers, sits in that 88 to 91 win for those playoff teams. No?
Yeah, no, it looks like a year with quite a bit of parity. A lot of teams kind of projecting around 85. Even you mentioned the Padres. The Bad X is actually kind of low on them. Their
30 to 1 outright. 30 to 1 outright. If they can keep the team together and not ship everybody away with the ownership issues. I mean, Cease and King is maybe one of the best 1-2 in baseball.
They are Cease and King are very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we're looking at this year. I think a lot more parity than the market is maybe projecting. I think the Bat only has 2 teams projected for over 90 wins. It's the Braves and the Dodgers, and that's it.
Yeah. And then you look at like the other teams like Pittsburgh, St. Louis, and Cincinnati are all kind of in the same spot at like 77 win projection. So they're kind of in that just below 500 range. Producer Mick saying, hit that like button. Braves, the Braves. Yeah, they're pretty good. They're good. So even number 2. Jeepers. I got to get ready for hockey. I got hockey in 13 minutes, Derek. I got too excited about a baseball conversation, but tomorrow, same time, 9:15, actual player prop releases. And I'd say temper expectations, but like at the beginning of the season, that's where you probably have a bigger edge versus the line makers in terms of doing more work in pitch counts and projection in the lineups. And the less information that's out there sometimes, maybe the more edges we have.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about it tomorrow. It can expose some edges. Also, early in the year, though, there's so much we don't know. Yeah. Like last year in spring training, I think like our first show, maybe we did like a Zach Wheeler under. It's like, we only maxed out at like 65 pitches in spring training.
102.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. So we can use that information and it helps, but sometimes it's just like teams are just going to do whatever they want to do. So we'll talk about it tomorrow for sure.
Awesome. So 9:15, get ready, get the accounts open, ready to go. Appreciate everything, Derek. Good insight into the changes going into this year. No big rule changes, so that makes a little sense. I think next year we'll be doing automatic balls and strikes. I think. Is that? I think the only thing they changed this year is that dumb, which is the smartest thing in baseball, the force out at second base to run past it. You know that move?
Uh-huh.
I try to teach that to my team, my kids. They don't get it, but that's by far the smartest move to get that run home. But I think that's gone.
But yeah, no real rule changes this year otherwise.
Let's go. Plays in. We'll put them out in a bit too. Put them out there, but back at 9:15. Thanks to everybody there. Thanks to the pumpers in the chat. Derek, Josh, MLB Prop Picks powered by the Bat. See you back here tomorrow. Thanks, guys.